But this one time I was just, I don't know, a little too cocky, and she was studying, doing homework in the basement. So I went upstairs to her bedroom and tried on her miniskirt and high heels and top. And I heard her coming up the stairs, and oh
Oh
my gosh,
no.
my heart went into my stomach, and I hope that she was.
Well, hello and welcome to My Girl Life podcast. I'm so excited for my interview today with the one and only Heidi Fox. I think I can speak for a lot of us, Heidi. Heidi has been an inspiration to a lot of us in the community, including myself. She's been brave enough to share a lot of her cross-dressing journey publicly through her website and her YouTube channel, which, by the way, has over 60,000 subscribers. So welcome to the show, Heidi.
Well, thank you, Maddie. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay. And I know you're getting ready to head off to Vegas for TGR, which is so exciting. And I'm not going to be able to make it this year, but I'm going to live vicariously through you and all the others.
Yes, as many of us do that. There's so many events now, and nobody can get to all of them. But it's fun to see what people do.
Exactly, and that's what I love about social media is that you feel like you're participating and that you're there. And I've made so many friends and connections on social media. Once you go to the events, you feel like you know the people already.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's start with your background, Heidi. If you want to tell us where you grew up and a little bit about your childhood.
Okay. As it relates to Heidi, or just in general?
Just in general, and then maybe how it dovetails into, Heidi, but just in general, even prior to the dressing.
All right. Well, I actually grew up in Rhode Island, and I had two older sisters and a younger brother, and I was really into sports. And well, I guess I should back up a little bit. When I was little, my two older sisters, and I assume all older sisters do this with their younger brothers, they would play with me as if I was a
doll
sister, yeah, as if I was a little sister. But I think I kind of grew out of that because I kind of got into sports and stuff, and that was a great way for me to make friends and relate to people, to guys, because I think I did have a lot of kind of feminine tendencies. Played with the girls on the playgrounds when I was like in kindergarten, and quickly learned that was not acceptable. But I could interact.
But that was your inclination to. It was just kind of natural that you were comfortable doing that.
Apparently, yeah. Yeah. But I was good at sports, so even though I didn't really understand male culture very much, I could fit in pretty well by being good at sports, getting picked for teams and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Got acceptance that way. What sports did you play?
Well, like jumping up to like high school and stuff, I played basketball, baseball, and soccer. And didn't do anything in college, although I did try out for the baseball team. But
nice.
Quickly got into other things.
Now, do you still do some sports recreationally now, or is it kind of in the past?
Well, for a long time I was running marathons and stuff, but
wow,
eventually
you run marathons.
Yeah, I ran Boston. I mean, this is going to sound like bragging now, but
go ahead. That's what this is for.
Shoot. But yeah, I ran Boston. I was pretty good for a while, but as you get older, you get slower, and then it just becomes a reminder of how much older you're getting by how much slower you're getting. But
the fact that you even finished one, regardless of where you finished, is just amazing.
I guess so. Thank you. But I've kind of transitioned from more competitive things. Maybe it's just like, again, getting older. I'm not really into the competitiveness of things because people kind of take things too seriously. I'm more just want to have the
hyper masculinity type thing. You mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes?
Well, maybe I hadn't thought about it in that regard. But yeah, that's probably part of it. Now I just want to do like things where you participate, which is like the running, and also I do a lot of line dancing, which you probably know already.
Did you find yourself kind of gravitating towards the women's conversations at a party or a
Oh,
get together than the men's? It just was
oh,
more
100%. Anytime,
interesting, right?
anytime we go, yeah, anytime we go to like a dinner party or get together, I have to be careful that I don't spend too much time hanging out with the ladies.
Oh, me
Yeah,
too.
that's definitely true.
And sometimes you don't realize it. You just naturally
Yeah.
wander
Oh,
over
yeah.
and you're right in the conversation because it interests me more. And it sounds like it did for you.
Uh,
You currently live in Utah, is that correct?
that's correct. Yes.
And you're married?
Been married for 28 years, I believe.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Especially balancing what you've been balancing. And I know the answers to some of these questions because I read your website and some background. And so
Right.
I know you have a supportive wife. Um, and I know that she's not just supportive, but um, she's not just tolerant, she's supportive and even participates to some degree. In fact, I think you made a quote that she said, knowing that if I didn't cross dress, I might not be the person she loves today. What a
Yeah.
great gift for
Right.
her
She
to
knows that
think that.
that's part of me, and to remove that part of me, what are you removing from your personality? But yeah, she is really supportive right now. It's been a long road, like I said, 28 years. It's had its ups and downs, and when she went through all of the trying to understand it, but she sees how much I enjoy it, and all of those original fears that every wife has when they first find out about their husband cross-dressing, none of them, developed into reality. So she's become really comfortable with it. And honestly, you mentioned that I'm going to TGR next week or tomorrow, actually. And I said, "Oh, it's too bad you're not coming." She's like, "I kind of wish I could. I really miss hanging out with some of your girlfriends." And so,
Well, tell
yeah,
me about some of the tell me about some of the ups and downs or the challenges because, like you insinuated, it wasn't perfect.
yeah.
It's probably been a lot of work. What are some of those challenges that you guys went through?
Well, I mean, they're the same things that everybody goes through. At first, she was like, "Well, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I thought my life was going to be.
Did she
Is he?"
catch you dressing, or did you tell her?
Well, okay. So the originally, I told her before we were married, and I figured if we're going to get married, this is something about her, something about me that she needs to know. And so I couldn't bear to just tell her, so I wrote her a letter. And I came home from work and I gave it to her and I went into the bedroom. And she came in 5 minutes later. And what I said in the letter was that I used to dress because, like many of us, I was convinced that I could stop.
Yep.
And so I said I used to like to dress in women's clothing. I just wanted you to know that this is something that I used to do. And
Okay,
she
so
was just so relieved that I wasn't breaking up with her that she, gave me a big hug and said it was no problem.
interesting. What did you What did you think when you told her that you used to? Did you think this is only halfway, and I'm going to have to end up telling her the rest, or you truly
No,
believed that you were done?
no, I truly believed that I was done. Yeah, at the time I didn't really have a lot. I had recently moved, and it, I really didn't start building up a wardrobe until after we were married, and kind of had access to a lot of hand-me-downs from her, and as things developed, going shopping and stuff. Um, but yeah, I purged several times.
Yeah, I think we've all gone through the purging thing. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that word, the purging is when in different forms for probably for different people, but you either feel guilty or you feel like you don't want to do this, or you want to get into a relationship and you feel like it'll sabotage the relationship. You get rid of everything and you tell yourself you're going to stop. And for most people, that doesn't work. It's temporary, and you're back at it.
And usually turns out to be kind of expensive.
It usually turns out to be kind of expensive, and not only expensive, but sometimes, at least when I first started, you were nervous about shopping, didn't know where to shop, and occasionally you'd find a really great skirt or top,
Right.
blouse, and then you get rid of it, and it's like, well,
Oh,
it
you
wasn't
never
that
find it
expensive, but it was
again.
perfect.
Yes, I've done that.
Right?
Yes. The perfect pair of heels. Yes.
Exactly. Tell us about your surprise day with your wife.
My surprise day?
Yeah, there was a surprise day where I think it was on your one of your videos, and you had a surprise day where she surprised you and took you out for shopping, or
Like way back in the beginning?
I think so. I read it on the
Okay.
website.
All right. Yeah, so this short to continue the story kind of basically. So I told her that I used to cross dress. Well, later, like a couple years into our marriage, I knew that I wanted to do it again, and I told her about it, and we had a lot of discussions. Well, one day I was actually on our anniversary, she surprised me and she said, I want to do this for you. And she took me out and she bought like all the makeup that I needed and a couple outfits and, um, and actually gave me my first like tutorial on how to put on the makeup. And that made a huge difference because I had toyed around with hers a couple times and it was not very good. So that was
Well,
like
what
my
a
first
huge
big
way
jump start.
for her to validate what you were doing. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure that meant way more to you than just the makeup and you know what I mean? It was the message. What
absolutely.
did that feel like?
And she's done that over and over many times where she's done a lot of things where she didn't have to do it, but it really meant a lot to me. And I think in her words, I treat her that well, so she's treating me the way that I treat her, and
Funny
that's
how that works.
yeah, no kidding, yeah. When you love someone, you want them to be happy. So
Was there ever a time where she thought, you know what, I really don't support this, and I thought I did and I don't? Was there ever a curveball like that?
not exactly. There was a couple times where I probably pushed things a little too far, and
Mm-hmm.
she had to tell me, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, this isn't what we talked about," or
It's a
I
little
didn't want
across my
this.
boundary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or there was one time I specifically remember she's like, "That's all you ever talk about right now is Heidi, 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 this and that."
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we talk about something else for a while? Because when it's like a dog that's been tied up and gets off the leash, it just runs around the yard like crazy, and that's
You're so
kind of how I
excited.
felt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have kids?
I have 4 kids. Yeah, they're all grown now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, 3 daughters and a son.
Do they know about Heidi?
They all know about Heidi, and that's another kind of story. It didn't really come out the way I wanted it to. Um, so
Did
we
you tell them
had
one by one or all at once? Or
one by one.
good.
Um, we had a couple that lived close to us, and they had some troubles and marriage troubles, and they did a lot of confiding in us, and we would do vacations together and stuff. And um, at one point, we thought it would be appropriate to confide with them the challenges that our marriage had, just to kind of show them that the couples can have challenges and deal with them. So we
And you're
confided
talking
with
about your couple, friend, your neighbors as a couple.
neighbor. Yeah,
Okay.
my neighbors. Um, they were just a husband and wife that we used to do a lot of things
Okay.
with, and they shared a lot of their personal struggles. And so we shared my cross dressing with them, and they acted like they thought that was cool. But so this couple, there was a falling out with this couple, and they essentially seemed like they were threatening us to out me to the neighborhood. And so we wanted our kids to hear it from us first before they heard
Mm-hmm.
it on the street. And phrasing it that way, like there's this couple, and we've had this falling out with them, and they're threatening the family, but I want you to hear it here first. It almost was like the protecting the family. They were definitely in favor of protecting the family, and made the cross dressing seem like not a big deal.
That's interesting. Yeah, it took a little shine off the cross dressing and became more of a family thing and protecting the family,
Yeah.
which
And
might have
I did
eased
have
it.
one of my daughters say, "Oh, it all makes sense now."
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, why did the couple do that? Was it just they had a falling out and they were just being mean, and that was one thing they could go to, or did they think that was pertinent to the neighborhood knowing or other people knowing? What
Yeah,
was their motive?
I don't know. I don't know. And we've not really talked to them since then. So, yeah, and I don't really want to get into that.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad, but that's an interesting way to roll it out to your kids. So, and I'm sure that felt once you did, I'm sure that was a big relief to have them
Yeah.
know.
And since then, I think three of the four have actually seen me as Heidi. Um, and it's hard to tell whether they. So my two youngest daughters seem like they think it's just fine. It's just kind of cool. But my son seems a little off put by it, but won't really admit it. And then my fourth daughter has never seen Heidi, and I'm not really sure what she thinks.
What was the difference? And the reason I ask is because um, I'm out to most all my friends that I see on a weekly basis, and they know Maddie in person. But my family, except for my kids, and my friends from a long time ago, male and female, I all came out to them in pictures only. They have not seen Maddie in person. I haven't gone there with them. What was that like to the difference between the people you came out to in just a picture and then when they saw you in person? Was there a much different reaction? Was it kind of a phased reaction because the pictures first and then in real person later?
Well, I guess the only time that's happened was with my kids, and it's been really brief. Like I just was like, "Bye, I'm going to go play with friends," just walking out the door. So
Okay.
that, but it is when I've done it with my wife. Originally, it was really awkward because voice and mannerisms and the things that you talk about are different as Heidi and as my male self,
Right.
and when you're interacting with someone who knows you in one way, changing that much is really awkward to know how much you want to retain your old personality and how much you want to present
Hmm.
this new one. So yeah, that's a little tricky.
Interesting. I haven't experienced that yet, but someday I probably will. Um, let's talk about the dressing and how that started. At what age did you start dressing?
Well, I guess if you count my sisters dressing me, it's before I can remember. I do remember um, trying on things that were left in the bathroom, swimming suits, and we had our laundry basket there. So locking myself in the bathroom and trying on whatever I could find in the laundry. I remember my mom painting my nails when I was little because she was painting my sister's nails, so I wanted my nails painted too. Until I remember one time being teased about that, like going over a friend's house and being teased about it, and then I learning that was not acceptable, and then never doing it again. Um, So I think
What was that like for you when you thought it was something that was just fine and natural, and then you found out it was a bad thing for
yeah,
for your friends?
it was confusing and disappointing, and um,
Did you take them at their word, like, oh, okay, this is not right, or
yeah,
did you
absolutely,
think,
yeah,
okay,
because as a kid, well, at least for me, a lot of things didn't come naturally, so I was trying to figure out the world as I was growing up and having more experiences, and I took everything as a lesson, and in some ways that helped me throughout my life. That I looked at all these different opportunities as lessons, but yeah, it was disappointing.
did you ever get caught? I think I read that your sister caught you and you begged her not to tell anybody.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So my teenage years, probably like 13 through 17 or so, I did a lot of cross dressing, a lot of sneaking. About any chance I got, I would I would try on my sister's clothes. She was very fashionable. She was a cheerleader. She had lots of pretty clothes. Um, so
Very tempting.
yeah, very tempting. And again, my family was really into sports, so they were always leaving the house for games and stuff. And whenever I got a chance, I would stay home. But this particular time that you're talking about, oh, so because they would leave home and go to these games, and I would dress at home. I kind of had like this clock in my head where I knew, okay, they're coming home. It's almost been an hour or whatever. So I thought I had like this sixth sense that I could I could stay dressed as long as I wanted, but as soon as the sixth sense started, Spidey sense started going off, I would change. And I had a lot of close calls, so I thought I had like this sixth sense. But this one time, I was just, I don't know, a little too cocky, and she was studying, doing homework in the basement. So I went upstairs to her bedroom and tried on her mini skirt and high heels and top. And I heard her coming up the stairs, and oh
Oh
my gosh,
no.
my heart went into my stomach, and I hoped that she was just coming into the kitchen. Nope, she came up the next set of stairs,
Were you trying to rip
and
close things off
oh
really
my,
quick?
I I didn't have time. I just tried to hide, but there was nowhere to hide.
Oh
And so then she
goodness.
came into the room, and oh, I was just so embarrassed, and
What did she say? Do you
she
remember?
was shocked, and I I don't know what she said because I was just kind of like ripping the clothes off as as fast as I could, and then later I like went down and started doing my homework, and she sat next to me and was like, "So, let's talk about that." And she wanted to know again. She's like, "So if it's okay if you're gay, it's okay." And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not gay. This
Yeah,
was
everybody thinks there's an automatic connection. Yeah,
yeah."
dressing
And
to
I said,
yeah.
and of course I said, "This is the first time I ever tried it. I just wanted to see what it was like." And yeah, I promised her not to tell anyone. And she's never mentioned it since then, and no one's ever mentioned it. So
Interesting.
yeah, I've never brought it up. She's never brought it up.
Interesting. Well, speaking of getting a little too confident and cocky, you said that you went out to the mailbox
Yeah, I
in
did that
your
too.
sister's and mom's clothes. Did
Yeah,
anybody see you?
that was one time when I stayed home sick from school, like not actually sick, but I I pretended I was sick so that I could stay home and try on
Yeah.
some of my this time it was my mom's stuff because she had some nice things too. But there was just this impulse to go outside, and so yeah, I decided to go out to the mailbox, and it was kind of a dare. I like to challenge myself, I
Was
guess.
your heart racing?
My heart was racing, but it felt so great having the wind
Right.
blow my skirt, and I had my hair wasn't really long, but it was long enough that I could feel the breeze on it. But no, I mean it was exciting, and as far as I know, no one saw me. I didn't see any neighbors or anything, but I loved hearing the heels clicking on the sidewalk, and felt like I had accomplished something. It was fun and exciting.
Well, I think it's almost universal with the cross dressing is you feel compelled to most of the time I imagine it starts privately and then you feel compelled to go out in public in some way, whether it be a bar or a lot of people drive around in their car dressed. Just I think it's an evolution, and then some people maybe never take it further than that. Did you ever do that? Did you ever just drive around in your car dressed?
Not too much. I did it maybe twice. And one time I actually went through the McDonald's drive-through. And it was obvious that they were on to me from the start, because when I got up to the part where you pay, there was a couple people pretending to sweep or whatever, just so they could get a glimpse of the cross-dresser.
Oh, everybody, look, we've got one. We've
Yeah.
got one here in the
Yeah,
drive-through.
exactly. So I probably wasn't the first one.
Well, there weren't iPhones and cameras on everybody's phone to snap a quick pic and put you on
You're,
the internet.
you're correct. Yes.
Were there any gaps in between when you were dressing? Like you said, you dressed heavily more in your teen years, and then did you stop? I guess you did because you purged, but so
Right.
those are the
Yeah.
gaps. Where were
I
those gaps?
I stopped when I was in college. There wasn't the opportunity, and also I would think I was just too busy.
Mm-hmm.
Too busy and too obsessed with girls, dating and stuff like that.
I think you
So
said you didn't really do any dressing in college. That probably would have been difficult. You probably had roommates.
right. There was just no opportunity to. I
Yeah.
didn't have any opportunity. I didn't have any clothing, and I was busy being a single guy.
What did that feel like? Was it completely out of your mind, and then once things changed, it kind of came back, or was it always just kind of there and you just had to keep it at bay?
It was always there, and I had to keep it at bay. But it wasn't like super strong, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think mostly I was trying to convince myself that that was something that I was moving on from,
Right.
and I think I may have even kind of surprised myself at how strongly it did eventually come back.
And that was when you got your own apartment, right? And you lived on your own?
Yeah, when I got my own apartment, yeah, the urge came back, and I ordered some stuff from like a Sears catalog or something. And so
Oh,
that
God.
was kind of the start of accumulating things. I never really accumulated a lot of stuff until well after I was married. But yeah, it's started kind of once you have that freedom of living on your own, then yeah, that opens up some new
Mm-hmm.
opportunities.
Absolutely. Heidi, do you know why you dress? Have you ever spent time really psychoanalyzing why you dress, or do you even really care? You enjoy it? Do you really care?
I've spent a lot of time trying to psychoanalyze it, and I think there is no one reason. I think it's a bunch of different reasons. And yeah, kind of at this point, I don't really care what that reason is. I know I enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's part of me. And I'm not out to everybody. I'm actually not out to most people because it's not really relevant in most cases. But I
Mm-hmm.
have gone to multiple not Christmas parties, Halloween parties as female costumes. So I think a lot of people can make that
And when you walked
connection.
really well in your heels and you looked better than most of the women there, they probably went, "That's not his first time."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me run a few things by you just to get your feedback on. So this is kind of some of the psychology of the dressing. Are you familiar with autogynephilia, that term?
Yes, I am.
I know it's controversial, and I know there's part of that theory that is, I don't agree with at all, about trans is really not a real thing. But I do um, relate to the loving oneself as a woman, being turned on by the idea of you being a woman. And it's usually sexually motivated. And that was in the beginning. And then it just kind of takes on a different life of its own. But does that hit home with you, especially in the beginning? Did it turn you on to dress in the beginning?
Yeah, sort of. I think, like in the beginning, like I think I was too young to know what being
Yeah,
turned
that's a
on
good point.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I think at points I would say probably yes, but not as a major motivator.
Mm-hmm. There was some element of it, but wasn't the core.
Yeah. So, when I imagine when girls get dressed up to go out clubbing or something and they are looking good, they're kind of a little bit turned on too.
I
And
never
maybe
really
that's a
thought
little
about
bit
that.
different, but I
I
think
never really thought about that.
there's some sexual charge to looking in the mirror and seeing
Mm-hmm.
someone who's sexy, whether it's a man seeing a woman, looking in the mirror and seeing himself as a woman, or a woman, feeling powerful because she's got her tight dress and high heels on.
Well, I've always said I dress like the girl I want to be with.
I think that's
That's
true
kind of
for
my
a lot of
guiding.
people. Yeah.
You don't. I already know the answer to this, but so there's no gender dysphoria with you. You don't feel
Um,
like a woman trapped in a man's body.
like I said, it's kind of complicated. I think there's a little bit of that as well. Not entirely. I would. So I guess that's a kind of a yes or no, and the answer would be no. There are some times when I feel like, I think this would be a lot easier if I had been born a woman. This would make a lot more sense. But I do
Mm-hmm.
enjoy my male side. I am proud of my male body, as well as proud of the female image that I can present. So I'm not disgusted by
It
looking
sounds
at
like you like
myself.
yourself. You like yourself as a man,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
like
I am.
yourself
I
as
do.
Heidi. It's not
Exactly.
one
Yeah.
or the other. Yeah.
Right.
Well, what about one term I discovered, and I wrote a blog article about it, was gender envy. And I have to say that really opened my eyes. I'll just read the description. Have you ever heard of gender envy?
I've not, but I can already tell you that I will probably like this definition.
Well, and check out my blog article. I'd love to get your feedback. But the definition, at least this is one of them. For many men, gender envy manifests as an emotional and psychological attraction to the traits of traditionally associated with women, such as femininity, grace, beauty, or even the freedom of expression that women often have regarding their appearance. And the other thing I took it, even in this blog article, I took it a step further, is the power they have over just men and women, but just the public in general. When you appear as present as a pretty woman, the people treat you differently, and they gravitate towards you. And that's what I've experienced. Have you experienced that?
Well, I definitely believe that that's a thing, a gender envy, and everything you just said. I can definitely. I've said that before to my wife many times. We've had that discussion. I've never used that term, but yeah, I definitely
Yeah,
think that
I
that's
hadn't either, but I think I felt it, I knew it, but I didn't have a phrase for it. So
right. Right.
I'm a songwriter and a producer, and I've been a magician when I was younger in high school, and so I had this artistic and creative expression need, and I get a lot of that through Maddie, through the presentation. It's artistic, it's creative. You're always working to improve it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Now, my job is not very creative, so I definitely enjoy my creative outlets when I'm not at my job.
So would you say Heidi is probably maybe your one and only truly creative artistic expression
No, definitely not my one and
in
only,
life?
but it may be my favorite.
Okay. Well, speaking of work, what do you do for work?
I'm a pharmacist.
You are a pharmacist.
Yeah,
Wow. Very cool. Is
thank
that
you.
something you aspired to be when you were like in college, or did it
No,
just
no,
kind of?
I was a biology major and trying to figure out where you go with a biology degree, and there was a huge shortage of pharmacists at the time, so they were paying really well and seemed like a good fit.
So you're not only pretty, you're smart. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I don't know about that, but I get by.
Um, let's talk about your social life. Obviously, you've been out in public. Do you and you have a presence online? When you go out, do you go primarily to LGBTQ establishments or mainstream establishments, or it doesn't matter to you? Do you have a preference?
Well, if I'm going in a small group, or with just my wife or one or two friends, I definitely prefer to go to mainstream places. But with a large group, it usually seems like LGBT.
Q,
Yeah, Q.
I.
Well, yeah, exactly. Are usually kind of where most of them would rather go, just to feel more comfortable. So I'll go along with that.
And are you comfortable going out locally, or do you just do it when you're out of town?
I rarely go out locally, um, but I'm willing to do it. It doesn't really bother me too much, and I used to um, kind of leave the neighborhood in a stealthy way, like I'll take my wig
Mm-hmm.
off and put a baseball cap on, and then put like a big
Yep.
baggy shirt over my outfit, and then sneak out of the neighborhood. But I've kind of gotten past that, where I'll just leave the neighborhood and get in my car and drive, without really caring anymore.
It's funny how that progresses, and I'm not sure what gives you that confidence to just finally say, "To heck with it. I'm just going to go with it." I used to do exactly what you described. Um, when I would leave the hotel room in Vegas, even in Vegas where I didn't know anybody, and I would do the makeup and put my outfit on, and then I would put boy clothes over it and a
Right,
backpack and a hat, and just hope that nobody got in the elevator with me, and then go to the car and finish it off. And then it
right,
was
exactly.
it was Wildside that got me over the hump, where I went out with that crowd and felt so comfortable and empowered, and I just said to heck with it and just walked right out of the door, and went down the
So,
elevator. And I was nervous, but it just broke the ice.
so did you have a hard time just opening the door to your hotel room to step out?
Oh, hell yes. You sit there and
Yeah,
you take a deep breath, and then you do one more or two more or 10 more confident looks in the mirror,
right.
make sure everything is right. And you're like, okay, I do look okay. And yeah, and you open that door and your heart and like you said before, it's nerve wracking and exciting all at the same time, which is probably why people race cars fast and dive
Oh,
off, jump out of airplanes, etc.
exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yep. But I think this is safer.
It's a little safer, yeah. Have you ever been misgendered when you've been out?
Um, I've been misgendered many times. It's hard to tell because I think people frequently use the wrong term just accidentally. I
Yep.
mean, this happens to me at work sometimes, and I'm in guy mode, and a customer will say, "Thank you, ma'am," and I know I don't look anything like a female when I'm at work. Um, so I think people just use the wrong word just accidentally all the time. So it's hard really to say.
Well, I
Um,
think intent is really important. So I've been misgendered by my friends. I've misgendered myself. Telling a
right.
story about myself, and I go, I told myself, "Hey, dude," and but it's the intent. If somebody's doing it on purpose and they repeatedly do it, or they're doing it to be mean, that's way different. But I don't get hung up on people making a mistake, and I might correct them in a funny way,
Right, yeah.
not to make them feel uncomfortable, but yeah, I just don't think people should get um, hung up on that, because you got to really look at the intent of the person.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't really had anybody be like intentionally offensive in that way.
That's good. And a lot of our friends have had different experiences, and I appreciate that. And I've only had one bad experience, and it wasn't even that bad. And I've been out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, given the political climate that we live in, that I've been out, since 2017 hundreds of times, and then the first time I got a bad experience was just recently. And the person was just more rude rather than, I didn't feel threatened. His
Yeah.
wife was mortified. She was
Oh
wonderful,
no.
and he just asked inappropriate questions, and I got caught off guard because I'd never been asked those questions, and I didn't really have a good answer, and I I just answered truthfully about being a guy, but I said not tonight, and it was fine. But have you had any bad experiences that you felt
Well, my first time
threatened?
going to Vegas, I went to the Divas Las Vegas thing, and it was my first time really doing anything in public, other
Was
than
that
like you.
was that in 2011 that you mentioned on your?
Boy, that probably it seems about right. Um,
And then you said 2013 was so different than your
right,
2011 experience.
exactly, yeah. So I went the first time, and I was like so nervous, and I was like determined I was going to do it. I'm going to go out. I'm going to be in public. I'm going to walk
Mm-hmm.
down the strip. I'm going to go to these casinos and stuff. But I was like really, really nervous the whole time, and like trying to not walk like a guy. Like I wasn't doing the over exaggerated hip thing or whatever like that, but I was
Right.
just trying to not, look like a guy. Um, and I was so nervous. And I heard several comments, like, just snide comments from people behind me. And I had one guy like stand and salute. I guess I was being like really stiff as I was walking. And so there was a lot of that kind of mocking like stuff.
Okay.
But so that was kind of like a bad experience for me. But
Do
then,
you
like,
think in any way it was? Of course, it was not your fault in any way. But do you think the lack of confidence? This is a horrible analogy, but I do think it fits. You know, when a dog senses you're afraid of them,
oh,
they're
100%.
they're
That's definitely
confident. Yeah.
what it was.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like you said, 2 years later, I went back and I was like, what, frick it. I'm not going to try and be nervous. I'm not going to care what people think. It was like, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. I'm not going to look timid. I'm just going to have fun. And it was a completely different experience. Anyone that I met was just like, happy to see me and just rolled with it. And
I think that's
I'm
really
100% sure
important
it was
point
just
you just made.
yeah.
The thing is, though, people can't just snap their fingers and get confidence. Do you have any idea what happened between the first one and the second one you went to? Why you had this? Was it because you had dressed more and maybe gone out a little bit more, or
I really hadn't
something
gone
just
out
clicked?
more. It was just, I was determined somewhere along the line. I just determined that I wasn't going to let other people decide whether I was having fun or not. And I wasn't going to care whether other people approved or didn't approve. And I was just going to enjoy it. And if that was a problem, then that was their problem.
And I
And I'm
think
sure
people sense that, and that's why you got a different
yeah,
reaction.
yeah, I believe so. And I'm sure that I had gotten advice from other people I had talked to that, said exactly what I told you, that if there's a problem, then it's their problem and not my problem.
And that was
You
the
know,
difference. And I think they sensed it. Like that's an important point for people to hear. So, Heidi, you had a quote on your website, and I want to run it by you, and then have you talk about it. You
sure.
said Heidi lives in the moment, not in the past, not in the future, and how it can be a way to suspend reality.
That sounds right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely said the part about, Heidi lives in the moment. At one point, Nikki, my wife, asked me, like, what's the backstory? Does Heidi have a backstory? And I'm like, and I thought about that. I'm like, well, maybe she should. And then I'm like, no, she doesn't have a backstory because she's just all about the moment. And like you said, part of any hobby really is forgetting about your regular life and just concentrating on whatever hobby you're engaged in. And that's the fun of it, is that you don't have to think about those things.
And I think the suspending reality, you can be Heidi, suspend reality, because Heidi's not really who you are. In a lot of ways, it is partly who you are, but I want to challenge you a little bit on this because I can really relate to that, and I love that quote. But what's happened to me, and you tell me if it's happened to you, is that after a while, you start to make friends, you start to have obligations, You have obligations to friends that you've made contact with. You have places to be, places to go, and that is reality. And that's not just in the past or in the future or whatever. It's something that Heidi has created. And even though you don't wake up and wonder who you are every morning, you've created a person in relationships that are part of the future because you're going to communicate with them. You're doing these interviews. You're going to the event and people are going to say, I haven't seen you in a long time, and you're going to catch up. So how does that square with no future, no past, no future?
Well, I think what I was more trying to get at was I don't think about the stresses of work or family life or those things. But you're right. I mean, it's definitely become something that's a part of me that where you do have these relationships and you do have events and friendships and things that in a way become responsibilities because you want to nurture those friendships and so you've got to perpetuate that. But
But to your point, you're still, because it's not your total reality and you're going to go back and I would imagine the percentage of time you live in boy mode versus Heidi is far more boy mode.
correct.
But so it's your suspense reality, but it has its own reality within that suspended reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. And I don't want to go off on a tangent too far, but in some ways, it's more truthful, more authentic being Heidi than my guy self because I'm not hiding a part of me. Well, I guess I mean
I
maybe I
can
am
relate.
because I'm hiding
Oh my God, I can relate to
my
that
guy
statement.
side. Yeah,
I think that's the things that you were feeling when you were young that you found out weren't appropriate because you were a boy. Those things never went away, and your desire to have those conversations with women, preference over maybe men, and so that you get to do that. You get to live that life for a few days or for a few hours. I
right.
think it's very cathartic.
Well, in my guy self life, I'm very guarded and not like super social. And part of that reason for that is that I'm always trying to make sure I don't say the wrong thing or let on that I've got these feminine tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm Heidi, I don't have to worry about accidentally letting it slip that I bought a new pair of heels last week or I love the color of that nail polish or
It is
whatever.
hard when somebody goes, "Hey, what's going on in your life?" This is, in your life. What's going on in your life? And some of the most fun and amazing experiences are Heidi or
Right,
Maddie,
right.
but you can't share that with them.
Exactly.
And that's a big reason I came out to a lot of people. Uh, my mom being one of them. She was in her 80s, and I was kind of her caretaker. And I'd go sit on her couch on Saturday mornings, and we'd talk for 2 hours. And she'd say, "How are things going? What's going on in your life? What'd you do this weekend or whatever?" And I had to lie to her because the
Yeah,
things I
yeah,
was doing was, weekends are for Maddie mostly. And I'm like, I'm
yeah.
not going to sit on this couch and lie to my mom for the next however many years I have her in my life. And so I
Right.
told her. And the same thing with some friends. We get together. I've known some of these guys for 30 years, 40 years, whatever. And they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't really want to sit and lie to you either. So I told them. And so I identify with that. You can't really share some of the amazing things that's happening in your life.
Right, right. Yeah, because there is an element of lying when you've got that, and you
Yeah.
can be as vague as possible, but there's you still feel kind of guilty for lying to people.
Yeah, I mean, lying's a harsh word, but technically, I wasn't telling my mom the truth.
Right.
You can call it whatever you want. I just felt like the relationship when you do that, I felt I was growing apart from my friends or my
Yeah.
whoever I hadn't told. And what happened was when I did tell them, guess what? The relationship went to a whole nother level. They started being vulnerable and sharing things with me,
Well,
and our relationship just went to a much deeper level, which was a total surprise.
Yeah, yeah. That takes a lot of courage because it can go south.
It can. Um, Let me ask you, you say you're religious, but not super religious. So how do you square the dressing with your religious beliefs?
Well, let's see. I wouldn't say I'm really religious anymore. We don't really attend church
Were you
or
Mormon?
yeah. Well, I grew up Catholic. When we moved to Utah, I did join the Mormon Church. Um, Everyone around here is Mormon, so the whole neighborhood is. So it seemed kind of natural, and there's a lot of good things about the Mormon Church. But
My dad married a Mormon lady, a
yeah,
second marriage, and he converted, and so
yeah,
I'm very familiar with it.
yeah. Okay, but eventually we just decided that just didn't fit, and it wasn't really because of the cross dressing. Although uh, that's if you've seen like their recent statements that they've made, we're kind of glad that we're not involved
Right.
anymore. Um, so no, I don't think I'm really religious anymore. I would say more spiritual than religious, and I think God sees your soul and sees how you treat other people and whether you're a good person or not.
I agree. I agree. I think it's about love and how you treat people, and I think there's good. I'm not religious either, but I think there's some good things in certain religions, and you could certainly pick a worse. You could pick worse ways to navigate your life, but doing it to the letter of the law with some of these things, I think
Yeah,
puts you in a difficult situation, and
right.
I'm not for that. So, um, let me ask you: you're a member of the Vanity Club, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Tell me about the Vanity Club.
Well, let's see. A really nice group of ladies for the most part. I mean, any large group is going to have some drama, but yeah, I got invited several years ago, and they try to present a nice, classy image of something that a lot of people have a misunderstanding about. And again, that's as to your question before about going into mainstream or LGB places. I That's one of the reasons I like going to mainstream places. I want to further the conversation
Mm-hmm.
that cross dressing is not necessarily just a sexual quirk that people have or whatever. That it can be done classy
Yeah, it
and
doesn't mean you're
respectfully.
gay. Most cross-dressers are straight.
Yeah,
But again, like you alluded to earlier in the interview, I think everything really is a spectrum.
right.
Sexuality and the cross-dressing and the trans, from full
Hmm.
transition to, you put on a pair of nylons once in a while. And so, like you said, everybody's in a little different spot, and the human mind and the psyche is so complicated. And I don't think we'll ever be able to truly
Right.
figure out exactly why we do what we do. Not that we
Yeah,
have to.
and it's so complicated that people try to simplify it, and that's where the problem comes in. So
Right.
people just make these assumptions. Mhm.
I agree. So what does your future look like? Do you have any idea what the future looks like for you and Heidi?
Well, I would say maybe it's so our youngest just graduated college and will probably be
Congratulations.
moving out soon. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamics change there. Will there be more Heidi days? Will there be more um, dressing and going out?
Do you want there to
Um,
be more Heidi days?
I'm not sure. I would say probably yes. I at least probably want to try it and see how it goes.
Sure.
Um, but that could be interesting. One of the things that I try not to make my anybody uncomfortable, but especially my kids. I don't want to be prancing around in skirts and heels if it's making them uncomfortable. So I try to do my dressing when they're away. Um, but if
But
they're
you'll
away
be an
all the
empty
time,
nester then once the last one
exactly, pretty
leaves here.
soon,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's going to be an interesting time for you and your wife.
Right, right. And I like being her husband, and I like doing like the husband wife stuff together.
That's
And
great.
honestly, being Heidi is a lot of work, so I certainly don't want to do it too
Right?
much.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. It takes a lot of, I know some of my friends get it, some of them don't quite get it, but it's not just the amount of time it takes to get ready. It's the mindset. It's the rush. And anytime you're doing something like that, it's heavy emotionally, even if it's good.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like heavy on your shoulders, and then once you get to where you're going, I'm always nervous when I walk in, and once you get to where you're going, I'm off to the races. It's great. But yeah, it is a lot. My last question, and then we're going to do the girls want to know. Some of the girls in the community have
Oh,
some
okay.
questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. Um, my last question is, what has been your number one problem issue of being a crossdresser?
Number one problem issue. Well, I suppose kind of something I was just kind of alluding to, that the cross dressing sometimes can be isolating because it's usually done in private or done like when I go away. So that by definition takes me away from the family and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes that can kind of seems like it's counterproductive and selfish, I guess. Um, so from a spiritual point, that's my answer. From like a physiological point, my number one challenge I think is trying to maintain the image, because it's a lot of shaving and a lot of staying in shape and grooming, and it's just a
Yep.
never ending thing.
Yep. I can relate 100%. And again, that's part of the work too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's not just the getting ready. Everybody goes, "How long does it take you to get ready?" A couple hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Well,
yeah.
that doesn't count. Luckily I don't have to. I shave with electric shaver. I hardly have any hair, but I do have to shave, and then I always have a spray tan, so I got to do that every week. And
Now I know your secret.
that's right. Um, and you're right. It's a great way to keep weight off. Cross dressing, by the way, great weight loss program.
Great incentive, yes.
All right, let's jump to girls want to know, and then we'll do the two truths and a lie, and then we will wrap up. Heidi,
Okay.
this has been great. I appreciate it. So Sandra Nelson had a question. Do you plan to add any more content to your website or your YouTube channel?
Well, YouTube channel, I post once a week, and I've been able to do that for a few years now. It's kind of a challenge to keep going. So yeah, I do plan to keep doing the YouTube channel. The website is different. It's not as user friendly, so I tend to just take the easy road and post on YouTube. There's also like bandwidth and memory requirements or restrictions
Mm-hmm.
on the website, so it's much harder to maintain. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do much more with that, unless there's any kind of like significant updates in my life that I think are valid. I like to keep that website just as like a companion book to my YouTube
Well, it's
channel.
got some great information on there, and it's your history. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Okay, great. Jennifer Gonzalez wants to know: is that your real hair, or do you wear wigs? Either
Oh,
way, you look great.
I definitely wear wigs. Yes, I wish I could grow out hair. That's one of my biggest frustrations, is
Right?
that I never really had a good hairline that I could just let it grow out.
Yeah, me either. How many wigs do you have, Heidi?
I've got probably 3 or 4 that I wear regularly, and then maybe like another 7 or 8 that I tried a couple times and they just weren't me, but I
Yep,
still have them.
yep. A lot of similarities. Ginger sometimes. She said, first of all, you were one of her first inspirations, which I think you were for
Thank
a
you,
lot of
Ginger.
people, and thank you for that. Her question is, when you're country dancing in female role, How do you turn off the need to lead while dancing?
Well, I mostly line dance, which is super convenient because the steps are the same for both men and women, and you just put different flair into it.
Have you ever
And
danced with a guy who wants to lead?
yeah, I've done that several times, and it does take some concentration to remember which foot to put where and what hand to put where. But I wouldn't mind doing it again. It's a fun challenge.
Interesting. I went to a country dance place once and was not planning on dancing at all. It's just a fun place to go and with some girlfriends. And I got asked to dance and I just had a wild hair. I said, sure. And I had a hell of a time following. I was
Yeah.
a disaster because I hadn't even thought of that. And
Yeah, right. You're not
I'm not a
prepared.
great country swing dancer. I know a few moves, but those moves are the lead, not the follower. So that
Yeah.
was kind of, I don't know what the guy was thinking. Jennifer Hengartner, does your wife ever ask about you being hit on when you go out?
Lots of people ask that if I get hit on when I go out. I don't know if my wife has ever asked that. You know, getting hit on is a lot, has something to do with how you look, but it has a lot more to do with like, do you make eye contact? Do you look like you want to be hit on? Are you positioning yourself somewhere where you look like you want to be approached?
Great
So,
points.
so I think most people don't understand that it's a lot less in how you look and more in like your body language and whether you're making eye contact, whether you're smiling at people, whether you're standing on the railing hoping to get asked to dance, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't. I don't get hit on either as Heidi or as my guy self, even though I'm hanging out at a bar a couple times a week.
Interesting. I think those are great points. Heather Delish wants to know, how do you get those fantastic legs?
Well, we kind of covered that already. They're
Yeah.
mostly running. I'm super active even when I'm not running. I'm
But
doing yard work or walking or hiking.
weren't you born with good legs in the first place?
Well, yeah, that's probably the truer
Not
answer
to take
is
anything
it's
away. And by the
genetics.
way, if you didn't take care of your body, they wouldn't end up. But I'm asked that quite a bit, and I'm like, I haven't done anything. I don't run. I mean, I work out, but
Yeah,
I said if you saw my siblings, you'd know where the legs came from,
you've all
and
got it. Yeah.
yeah, it's certainly nothing I'm doing that's special. In fact, I used to get teased when I was little that I had girl legs, and it would make me cry. And I'm like,
No, it
okay,
makes you
well,
smile.
I guess I have the last laugh on that one.
You guess so.
Melody Wall wants to know, how much Heidi time do you get? Do you get out weekly or monthly?
Well, I guess on average it's every 2 weeks, so maybe 2 to 3 times a month.
Okay. Joanne Rogers wants to know, how easy or difficult is it to cross-dress in the state of Utah, being that it is so conservative?
Yeah, I think that's a myth. It's not been a problem for me at all, especially like downtown Salt Lake is pretty liberal. But I
Mm-hmm.
actually went to with one of my friends here who's a crossdresser. We went to a Mormon temple opening, and they have a before they dedicate it, they allow the public to go tour it. And I went and did the tour as Heidi through the Mormon temple, and we didn't have any issues.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it just kind of gets blown out of proportion.
yeah.
My dad lived in Utah for years and years, and we went there, and yeah, it's not quite what people think. And then Joanne also said, do you have old original Polaroid photos of your beginnings here in the Northeast?
Who said
Sounds
that?
like Joanne Rogers.
Joanne Rogers. Yes,
Sounds like an inside
I know.
question.
Yeah, she. Well, we talked a couple of times over email or whatever way back when I used to live in Maine.
Okay.
And yeah, there weren't Polaroids, but yeah, I still have some of those old 35 millimeter pictures where You would take a picture and you take the roll to the drugstore and drop them off
Wow.
and nervously go back a week later and pick them up, hoping that the person that
Wow.
handed them to you hadn't peeked at them. But yeah, I still have some of those.
I have not experienced that. My dressing came much later when we had digital. Interesting. Okay, well, those are the answers, or those are the questions from the girls in the community. Our last segment here is going to be 2 truths and a lie. So,
okay.
Heidi, you are going to make 3 statements. 2 of them are going to be true, and 1 of them is going to be a lie, and they're not necessarily in that order.
Okay.
And anybody who emails me at maddiesometimes@gmail.com, that's maddiesometimes@gmail.com, first person that emails me the correct answer, which would be which one's the lie, will win a prize. So with that being said, go ahead and give it to us, Heidi.
Okay, so this first one is from about 10 years ago. Glamour Boutique wanted to fly me out to the East Coast and do a photo shoot, but I didn't want to do it. So I made these ridiculous demands and made myself seem like a total diva, and then they changed their mind and didn't fly me out. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 was just last week, and our wash machine broke down, but I was wanting to try on my outfits that day for Vegas that was coming up. And so I decided, what the hell? I'm just going to do both at the same time. Have my new wash machine delivered, and go ahead and try on my outfits for Vegas. So I greeted. I was in the middle of trying on my outfits, and the wash machine delivery guy came, and I just greeted him as Heidi, and he installed my wash machine.
Okay.
And number 3, I was out in the desert, like 20 miles from the nearest road. It's no cell service. Just doing like a guy trip. But as you know, I sometimes bring some girl stuff along to take some fun pictures. And I was in girl mode and finding a nice spot to take some pictures, and my truck broke down. So my truck broke down. I'm in girl mode. I'm stranded, no cell service. And a guy on a unicycle came by and rescued me. So those are my 3 stories.
Glamour Boutique, washer broke down in the desert, stranded. So the first person that emails me the lie will win a prize. Hey, Heidi, this has been an amazing conversation. I really enjoy you being open and honest. And I think a lot of people in our community are going to benefit from hearing your stories and your insights.
Well, thank you, Maddie. I've enjoyed it. You're a wonderful hostess, and I'm glad that you asked me to do this.
Thank you, and have a wonderful time in Vegas. And I don't want to hear a word about it because I'm going to have FOMO, and I've heard that you can indeed die of FOMO. So have a wonderful and safe trip.
Well, thank you, Maddie. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.